How about plant training? Let's get into that a little bit. It's a highly debated topic, right? When we talk about some of the types of training. So low stress training, I think a lot of people do with autos in particular. Definitely helps with kind of having those even colas. You prevent that, the plant growing Christmas tree style and have one big main cola that's at risk for bud rot and mold to get in the middle of it due to lack of airflow, so on and so forth. So low stress training is very, very common. Topping is one of those things that are very, very debated, right? We touched upon how, any stunt in growth is going to negatively impact yield, but there's some people that swear by topping and, doing one top at a certain point, and they swear that they get a bigger yield off of it. What's your stance, on training? We can even get into super cropping. Do you do any low stress training, super cropping, topping, any type of plant training when you're growing autos?
So I've never super cropped, but I used to top every single auto I grew. And, my stance really is whatever works for you. That's my stance. That's usually my stance on a lot of this stuff. I think that topping has a place. For me, again, this stuff is subjective. For me, topping is good when it's needed as far as ceiling height maxes and stuff like that. I started out in a 2x2x4 tent. A 4-foot ceiling height, in my opinion, unless you're growing like microgreens, is really low. And so the plants would grow up into dangerous areas in that light very easily. When if you've got a pot down at the bottom that's taken up a foot, and then the soil level starts, and then you've got to stay, let's say let's say your light in particular, you need to stay at least 18 inches away. That only leaves you with so much space. So that's why I topped. Now, you can indeed top autos. You can top them at whatever node you want. The question is it going to be beneficial for you? And so let's break this down into a couple of different categories here. As far as yield, I myself have never had increased yield from topping an auto. Now, I can't say that with absolute certainty because, like we talked about earlier, I'm unable to clone an auto and do a side-by-side comparison. If we could clone one and then have two identical plants, top one, not top the other, grow them the same, and see what happens, that would be great. But we don't have the benefit of doing that with autos because you can't clone them correctly. So, in my opinion, and based off of my experience, I don't see them giving me any more yield. That could be grower error. That could be my own grow techniques. That could be something I did. I'm not pumping full of synthetic nutrients. I mean, if you're in DWC, there's so many variables that could play into this, But in general, yes, you can top. If you're topping to get more yield, that didn't work for me. It doesn't work for a lot of people. If some people say that it does work for them, then maybe that method of those people that it's working for is kind of where people need to flock to and build upon. For me, in my method, it doesn't really produce any more yields for me. So I think there are other reasons to do it. So like for me, ceiling height, another reason to do it. There's a guy on Instagram named Green75. He tops and hacks and bends and ties and trains these things like they're just yarn. You know what I mean? And he does it because he wants to shoot for all colas and not necessarily popcorn fluff and stuff all along the bottom. So I'm not sure it gives you more yield. For me, it didn't. And for a lot of people I know, it doesn't. I prefer to just grow them naturally and do some low stress training. I think low stress training is great. It doesn't really stress the plant out. And the biggest yields that I've gotten, if I had to compare and I had to make a guess, was from low stress training. A topped plant, an untopped plant, and then a low stress trained plant. The LST one I've gotten the biggest results out of, and that was actually just simply kind of bending the plant over almost and letting it grow horizontal and letting the side branches grow up, and I just ended up with these huge like just spear colas shooting out all over the place. But a lot of times these days, I just let them grow. And it's just because I'm fascinated with their natural state. I do like to, shave the legs, so to speak, and lollipop a little bit and get some of that larf on the bottom. But for the most part, I just like to let them grow. But it's a debated topic, man. It is. Can you top? Absolutely. Of course you can. Should you? Well, that's, like I said, that depends solely upon your experience, your goals, your environment, all those different things. That's just my subjective opinion on it, though.
This clip is brought to you by AC Infinity. Use discount code Mr.GrowIt15 to save on any of their products.